All right, welcome to the Young Turks. What's going on? Do we have some news? God, we're always full of news these days, huh? Now, obviously, we've got some big news about the Young Turks. We're going to do that first. But first, let me tell you, before we even do that, later in the program, President Obama has a new plan. Is it actually progressive, and will he stick to it? I will decipher, and I will let you know. Also, Ron Suskind has a new book about President Obama's advisors. Fascinating / disastrous details of that a little later in the program. Also, Don't Ask, Don't Tell has been repealed. Win. We'll talk about that a little bit, and then I've got your standard Republican clowns, Nikki Haley, Bill O'Reilly, and if we have time, Herman Cain. So a lot to get to. But first, dramatic Young Turks news. We will be joining current. Who's the elbow for? I don't know. The rest of the media? We're coming. So, if you haven't seen it yet, here's our little introductory video with a guy you might recognize. Hi, it's Jake of the Young Turks, and we've got an exciting new announcement for you guys. We're coming to television, and I've got a new boss. I think you're going to like this boss. Look at this.
Welcome to Current TV, Jake. Joel Hyatt and I are so excited to have you. We want you to keep on speaking truth to power without fear or favor. You're on a truly independent network now.
That's why I'm here. I love it. I want to be independent, aggressive, and progressive. And I know you're not going to mind that.
Not a bit. We encourage it.
All right, excellent. Everybody check out our interview with the Vice President on theyoungturks.com. There you have it. Young Turks coming to Current TV. In another version of that video, I thought about walking down that bridge and finally walking the bridge to the 21st century. Oh, come on, that's good. / Anna would hate it. She'd be like, oh, you're so corny. Okay, anyway, so listen, I also sat down with the Vice President and we had a little interview. I'm going to show that to you in just a second. Calm down. Hold on for 1 second, okay? First, I want to tell everybody why we're going to Current. So, obviously, Young Turks going to Current television. Why are we doing it? For a great number of reasons. Number one, they wanted the Young Turks. I love that. As soon as I heard that, I was like, win. And by the Young Turks, of course, they don't mean just me. Sure, JR, Jesus, take a shot, Jesus, go for it. Oh, look at that, for the win, okay? And all the guest co-hosts, Wes, Clark Jr., and Michael Shore, Ben Mankiewicz, RJ, everybody, right? So I love that attitude, but they also wanted you guys. They wanted the whole package, and you know the Young Turks is also the audience too. And so again, you deliver for us. TYT Army, always too strong. So the fact that they got that, I think, was huge for us. Obviously, the fact that they're independent is enormous because then you don't have to worry about these mega corporations. Well, yeah, we could do that, but on the other hand, we have these interests in Washington, and Washington doesn't like your tone. I think I've heard that somewhere before. Well, we're not getting that with Current, which is great. But look, being on TV has a great number of advantages too. Now, obviously, we reach a ton of people being online, 1 million views a day, etc. But one, you reach a slightly different audience on television. Always better to reach a larger audience, obviously, with the ideas that we're trying to bring to the country and hopefully to try to help the country. But number two, television, keep it real, is more influential in Washington. You know it, I know it. Right now, that one day will change, but currently, that's the truth. And then second of all, look, you got bigger resources. So we got all these great progressives that we want to bring on the show all the time. So whether it's, Sam Cedar and Sirota, and all the people, Glenn Greenwald, that we have on the program all the time, but to be able to pass through on a satellite to them and bring them on and be a place where progressives can come and talk and have an honest dialogue, no matter what your ideology is, but just stop with the talking points and you create a home for honest discussion about the issues. Look, I think that's exactly what they're going to let us do, and I'm super excited by it. And plus, of course, the Young Turks Online isn't going anywhere. We're still doing the same exact show live on theyoungturks.com, and also, of course, the clips on YouTube as well. Plus, we're doing the TV show, so you get more Young Turks. Win for everybody. One last thing. Look, this isn't kissing up. You know me. If anything, I've had the opposite problem with my bosses, right? But look, one of the guys who founded the company is Al Gore, as we showed you in a previous video, right? I wrote not one, not two, but 3 different articles about how Al Gore should run in 2008. And I wrote that back all the way in 06 and then in 07. And the reason I wrote that back then is because he was right about the Iraq War. And it wasn't just like tangentially right. He gave a whole speech on it. And of course, he's been right about climate change. He was right on civil liberties. He was right on torture. And he said it loudly and forcefully. And I thought, that's the guy, right? And so now for him to be one of my bosses is amazing. Joel Hyatt, David Borman are also there. David Borman, you probably might not know him because he's a television executive, but he's the guy that's been doing all these innovative shows like World News Now, et cetera. It's great. And then for Olbermann, just for a second, remember what it was like before Keith Olbermann started doing his special comments. You remember? I mean, for those of you who've been watching the Young Turks a long time, I'd be pulling my hair out. We never got any of our messages on television. And then he started doing that, got good ratings, and then more and more progressive hosts came, and it opened up a little bit of a national conversation. And that's the guy that has the show after us. It's a great place to be. We're really excited about it, and obviously we hope that you come watch us on Current as well as online. All right, now, our interview with the Vice President, Al Gore. Now, our interview with the Vice President, Al Gore. Mr. Vice President, thank you for sitting down with us.
Happy to do it.
My current boss as well. So now I want to ask you about some of the issues, of course. But first, I wanted to ask you about your vision for Current. It's particularly relevant to me, but it's definitely relevant to our audience as well. What do you see the network doing? What's the main objective here?
To speak truth to power, to tell stories that no one else is telling, and to do it in a hard-hitting and thoroughly responsible and informative way. We are literally the only news and commentary network in all of American television that is truly independent. We are not owned by any corporate conglomerate. We don't have any one to answer to other than what we believe is right and what needs to be reported and said. And so I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and the Young Turks, and I just thought, along with my partner Joel Hyatt, my co-founder, our CEO, that this is going to be a great fit, and I just am excited at your ability to just speak the truth without fear or favor.
Yeah, look, I really appreciate you saying that, and it means the world to me. I only wrote about 3 articles trying to get you to run in 2008, but so obviously the feeling is mutual, and obviously that's why we're in the room together. All right, now let's talk about some of the issues that are in the news today. Keystone XL pipeline coming in from Canada. I take it you're against it.
Very, very much so, and I hope that President Obama will decide not to allow that to go forward. There are 2 big reasons. There have been lots of pipeline leaks associated with this gritty material that they want to carry all the way across the United States. But more importantly, the production of gasoline and other products from the tar sands process requires a much larger amount of CO2, global warming pollution, than making gasoline from crude oil.
But they say they're going to do it anyway. That's Canada's decision to go forward with the project. It's either going to go to us or it's going to go to other people. And they say, look, it'll create jobs. I said, you know all this. So how do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I don't think that's so clear. But second of all, the United States of America is the only nation capable of leading the world community. That may sound like lots of pride in our country, the USA, but it's just a fact. And if the United States does not lead boldly and wisely to stop global warming, then the world is going to have a much harder time getting its act together on this. And with all the extreme weather events that the scientists are saying are now definitely linked to this climate change process underway, with us putting 90 million tons of fresh pollution up there every 24 hours, it's crazy to shift to this dirty source. A gallon of gasoline that is produced from the tar sands process, if you put that in a Prius, the Prius will have the same global warming footprint as a Hummer using gasoline made from crude oil.
All right, but now I'm going to keep it real with you because I don't think President Obama is going to go in that direction. I think he's going to approve it. And now, do you think I'm wrong, or are you hopeful at all that President Obama is going to do the right thing here, or no?
Well, we've probably been reading some of the same tea leaves, the statement from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton that was in favor of it, some of the other cabinet officials sending signals. So I see those tea leaves. And I guess the odds are that he will. I hope against hope that he will not, because it would be a profound mistake. And I hope there's still time. You know, this satisfying this interest and that interest and splitting the difference, how's that working? It doesn't seem to be working too well. Bold, principled leadership, I think that's what people are hungry for.
Well, I couldn't agree more, but we've had this issue not just with climate change, but throughout Obama's presidency, if you ask me. And you know, on the climate change, we had the smog rule, the State Department on the Keystone Pipeline, and it goes on, and it does on many other issues, the debt negotiations, et cetera. So I got to ask you, overall, so far, are you disappointed?
Well, I'm going to give you a nuanced answer just because that represents my true feelings. I think it's a quandary for many of the president's supporters, and I support him. I intend to vote for him again. And he's done a lot of great things, and I have a lot of empathy for the situation he walked into. They left him the catastrophic economic situation, a hollowed out middle-class economy, all the debt that was run up, and then he had to turn his attention to trying to fix it within a political environment where the special interests now have so much power. The role of money is so big in politics now that it's really hard for any president. But having expressed that empathy, I'll say, in spite of all the good things he's done, has he done some things that have disappointed me? Absolutely. I just want to express the hope that he's going to rise to it and meet the challenge, and I hope that he will.
Well, I hope so as well, but I might be a little less hopeful than you, unfortunately. So you mentioned campaign finance reform there. I thought that that's what he meant by change. I guess I was wrong. But I know it's something you deeply care about. What should he do on that? I mean, there's been really almost no proposal, but what would be the right proposal?
Well, soon after he took office, the Supreme Court, with whose opinions I have not always agreed, issued another one that I think was particularly egregious, with the so-called Citizens United case that opened the floodgates for anonymous corporate contributions into the political system, as if it wasn't already tilted in their favor. So that limited the ability that Obama had to make a fundamental change in the way campaigns are financed now. But we've got to address this. To his credit, he did single out that decision, but thus far there's been no real remedy proposed for it. It's going to have to come in some way, shape, or fashion from a very strong sentiment expressed at the grassroots level. And frankly, I hear a lot of conservatives along with left of center types saying, hey, calling corporations people and letting them dominate our democracy, hey, that's not American. It's not a question of liberal conservative. It's whether or not we're going to protect our birthright, American democracy.
Absolutely. Conservatives don't want their politicians bought any more than liberals do.
Right.
And I think they're very frustrated by it. I actually think that's one of the few good parts of the Tea Party, that they have that same sense of frustration with their politicians.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I disagree with them on the substance of some of their proposals, but so that brings us to the other side of the aisle.
Yeah.
Rick Perry worked for you in 1988, in a sense, by endorsing your campaign for president. Did he do a good job?
Well, I remember his support, and I'm grateful for it. And of course, soon thereafter, he changed political parties and began a process of evolution in his in his views on a whole range of issues. I would prefer. I was grateful for the support then. I recognize his politics have changed. I really don't agree with what he says now, much as I don't agree with what most all of the Republican candidates do. But I'll let him explain his 360 on or 180 on all of these policy positions.
One more question on the Republicans. I don't know if there's an easy answer for this, but any one that you think is particularly more harmful than the rest, or particularly less harmful than the rest?
Oh, I'm not a great political prognosticator, and whatever I said might be used to the disadvantage of the one that I liked in the Republican primary process. Obviously, I'll run the risk of doing further damage to John Huntsman by saying that I think that it took a lot of courage for him to say some of the things that he has said. And I do appreciate that fact. But really, I don't think any of them have offered a meaningful or realistic prescription for getting the country out of this economic morass, much less a prescription for dealing with incredible challenges like the climate crisis.
Well, we're agreed on that as well. Thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, there you have it. Former Vice President Al Gore sitting down to talk to us, of course, also the founder of Current TV, where we're going. You know, after we do the interviews, we oftentimes analyze it. Let me just say a couple of quick words here. He said if President Obama approves the Keystone XL pipeline, it would be, quote, a profound mistake. I would be shocked if President Obama did not approve it. He almost certainly will. Hence, it'll be a profound mistake. He says he hopes against hope that President Obama does not do that. Why do we have a Democratic president, the one who, during the primaries, aggressively talked about climate change, that we have to hope against hope that he does the right thing, and we think very likely he will not? And then finally, he's talked about splitting the difference and trying to appease everyone at the table, and he said, how's that working out? Well, you've heard that often here on the Young Turks, that same question. And you know what the answer is. It isn't working out very well at all. In fact, when we come back from the break, I'm going to tell you what the next part of that is, and if President Obama's actually turned a corner and is more populist now and has more progressive policies. We'll explain when we come back. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, lovely and brilliant Anna Kasparian. What's going on, Casper?
Howdy, it's a great day at TYT neighborhood.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Looking forward to a little bit more TV appearances there, Casper?
Yeah, I am. I'm excited about the current news. Definitely excited for you because I think that's where you belong. That's where the Young Turks belong. I'm excited about TYTU, which hit 1 million hits.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. He don't even care about the current thing. TYTU hit 1 million views, so.
I love that channel. It's like my baby. So I get excited every time we hit another stepping stone.
No, God bless, God bless. That makes it larger than like probably 98% of the channels on YouTube. So, by the way, the hosts of that brilliant channel, which you should check out on youtube.com/TYT University, are the lovely and brilliant Anna Kasparian and the Reverend J.R. Jackson.
Get it? Okay. We did a great show today, by the way.
Am I either lovely or brilliant? I'm just curious. We're all falling with the looks and the brains.
Yeah, I feel a little uncomfortable talking about that.
I want to make sure Anna answers it. I don't want you answering it.
Okay. All right. Well, we're libs. Sure, JR. Of course you are. Okay, what's next then?
All right, we have to talk about Troy Davis. The parole board in Georgia has not granted clemency to Troy Davis, which I honestly cannot believe. What country are we living in? Of course, if you've been following the Troy Davis story, he was convicted of killing a police officer back in 1991. Or he was tried in 1991, I should say. And even though people who were witnesses testifying against him, they've come out and said, actually, we take it back. We're not 100% sure. Even though 3 members of the jury who found him guilty, even though they have come forward and said, no, we would like you guys to grant clemency because we're not sure and we don't think that this guy should be killed. Even though they've come forward and said that, it doesn't matter. The parole board in Georgia has denied him clemency, and he is scheduled to be executed tomorrow, Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Now,
you might dismiss all of that. I don't know why you would. And Amnesty International called it unconscionable. You might dismiss that. Okay, fine. How about Jimmy Carter, former president of the United States? Oh, it's Jimmy Carter. He doesn't count. He actually cares about everybody. What a terrible mistake that is. How about if you're religious, Pope Benedict? Does he not count? Oh, no, he's just the Pope. For other things, like when you're trying to deny people birth control, he counts a lot, right? But when it comes to the death penalty, he doesn't count at all. Okay, you dismiss him. How about former conservatives or current conservatives like former Congressman Representative Bob Barr? How about ex-Justice Department official Larry Thompson? How about the former FBI Director William Sessions, who have all said, do not execute this guy. There are grave concerns about this case, right? Now, here's the thing. Nobody's saying, or at least I'm not saying, let the guy go, right? Now, if you want to do a process whereby which you decide whether he's actually innocent, great, fantastic, right? But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about at this point, just don't kill him tomorrow. Okay, you know what? What's the worst case scenario? He remains in jail for the rest of his life? Like, because some people obviously think he's guilty, right? Yeah,
like the family of the victim, okay? The police officer that was killed, the family's been interviewed by the press, and of course they're saying, no, his execution has been rescheduled 4 different times. Enough is enough. We want to start our lives over again, get rid of this guy, execute. However, there's new DNA evidence suggesting that he is not the man who shot the police officer. There is actual proof that says that this might not be the right guy.
Now, think about this, right? Okay, so you execute the wrong guy. Apparently, you might not care about that, if that's the case. Don't you want to be 100% sure? All right, but how about the fact that you won't get justice for the guy who actually killed your dad? How about that?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, there are several witnesses saying, no, we saw the guy who actually killed him. It's not Troy Davis, right? You tell me you're 100% certain the pardons board here is 100% certain, beyond any reasonable doubt, that this guy was definitely, despite this mountain of evidence, that should at the very least make you reconsider enough to say, hey, maybe we should just let him stay in prison for life for the moment being, you know, so we don't execute him tomorrow and make a terrible mistake we cannot recover from. But nope. They're tough guys. They're tough. They say, oh, well, you know, we understand the emotions of a death penalty. This isn't about emotions. This isn't about, hey, oh my God, I feel bad for the guy who shot the cop. Okay, the guy who actually did the killings is a terrible guy. And he was pistol whipping a homeless guy, and then he shot a cop and killed him, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't know it's this guy. If you were 100% certain you had the right guy, you know me, you know, look, the only reason I'm against the death penalty is because we're not certain, like this case, right? If we were certain, it'd be a different question, because I get emotional for the victims, okay? This isn't about emotion, it's about you knuckleheads. You might kill the wrong guy. I keep saying it because I can't believe that they're not moved by that.
They're not moved by it. It's almost as if they don't care. Even if they have evidence slapping them in the face saying, no, this is the wrong guy, they still don't care. They don't even want to retry this guy, which is amazing to me, okay? I don't know what their reasoning is behind that. And if anything, this case is just one example, and it's a perfect example of why the death penalty just does not make sense. It doesn't make sense. There's human error that comes into play. There's bias that comes into play. There's an innocent man who's about to, or possibly innocent man, who is set to lose his life tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Regardless of the DNA evidence, regardless of testimony, regardless of any proof that is coming to this parole board, they don't care.
You know, let me go a little further about my change of heart on the death penalty. You know, so I used to be in favor of it and got into at least a half an hour debate with Mario Cuomo once on our old Sirius satellite radio show. It was a lot of fun. And then later I changed my mind and I'm against the death penalty for the reasons that I always tell you, which is that, you know, the weight of evidence. Since that time, we have had all these people who've been exonerated because of DNA evidence, among others. It turns out they were innocent and they were on death row and we're going to kill them, and some have been killed. Oops, right? So that's why I changed my mind. But I'm going to go a little further today, okay? I think I was fundamentally wrong on it. Because it's not just that there's new evidence. Yes, there is, no question about it. I think that's very important, right? Throughout all of these years with the DNA, et cetera. It's that, look at this. Obviously, you can't be certain, right? Because they were certain before they had the right guy, Troy Davis. The jury was certain, the system was certain, the witnesses were certain. Now, many years later, the witnesses are like, yeah, when we said we were certain, we actually weren't certain. We just said that in court. Now there are new guys who say, forget the DNA part. So then when you look at that, you go, well, you can never be certain enough that you're killing the right guy. Exactly. So, no, that's why I I think, like I said, I think I was actually fundamentally wrong about it.
The last time he was scheduled to be executed, it turns out that the parole board changed their minds within hours of his execution. So, Troy Davis's family is hoping that a similar thing happens now and he gets a retrial. I guess we'll see what happens. But just the thought of a man who possibly could be innocent, the thought of him losing his life, it just makes me sick to my stomach. And
right. And, let me say one last thing here. Look, I went to law school, and you see the tricks that sometimes lawyers play, and they show, okay, can you see him from 20 feet? Can you see him from 30 feet? Oh, well, if you can't, the difference, then all the witnesses don't mean anything, right? So, and a lot of times guilty people get away with it, and that drives me crazy, right? And we talk about that in the context of whether it's murder cases, child molestation cases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? We've covered a lot of those stories. So I'm torn apart by what happened to the victims. I hate when we don't have justice, right? No matter what the issue is. And so that was part of what was influencing me back then. But again, the evidence I have seen since I was in law schools, for example, I had no idea the confessions were as unreliable as they are.
Right.
Like, did I think, is it possible that confessions could be coerced? Of course, right? But did I think so many confessions would be made up simply because the cops put you in a room for a couple of hours and sweated you out? I would have thought, who would confess to killing someone or some heinous rape or something because they put you in a room for a couple of hours and pressured you? It turns out the answer is a lot of people. And I'm honestly shocked by that. But we've seen dozens of cases of that happening over and over and over again. This all goes to mean that it's not that you can't try people. You got to do the best you can. You got to try them because you got to try to bring them to justice, right? And our system is nowhere near perfect. But in this obviously imperfect system, you cannot execute people. You just can't do it. Okay, but all of you already knew that. I'm just kind of talking to myself here. It's like when we're playing basketball and I didn't get a rebound I should have gotten. I'll go like, come on, let's get some rebounds. Let's get some rebounds.
I don't even know what that is.
Okay. I thought that was a pretty simple basketball analogy.
I know, but you said something about basketball and my eyes glazed over and I stopped paying attention.
That was quick, man. That was lightning speed for eyes glazing over. All right, what's next?
All right, this is actually a story that I want to add to the Troy Davis story. It's not related, but it has a similar theme. So a former student from the University of Northern Iowa was allegedly raped and sexually assaulted back in 2004. In fact, the two football players were found guilty of sexually assaulting her, okay? And they did serve prison time for it. One of them allegedly raped her and then called his friend, and then his friend came in to the dorm room and then sexually assaulted her. Now, even though they were found guilty and they were convicted, all of that stuff, it turns out that the school, the way that the University of Northern Iowa handled it was not okay. They brushed her off, okay? They basically told her, like, you need to be tougher and you need to pull through this, okay? And basically, they completely wanted to ignore the case and they didn't want to help her at all. And it got so bad that she ended up leaving the university. She transferred out and she went to a different university. Now, since 2004, she has filed a civil lawsuit against the university for the way that they handled the case. Now, what is the University of Northern Iowa doing in response to it? They are ripping her apart. They want access to her telephone records. They want access to her Facebook and social media accounts. They want to know information about her father's death years before this even happened. It's completely unrelated, but they want every little tiny detail about this girl's personal life because they want to rip the victim apart. Because they know they're guilty for the way they handled the case.
Well, it's interesting because when they should have taken a lot of action, they took almost no action, right? Mm-hmm. When they should have sprung into action to say, hey, we got to make sure women on this campus are protected, right? They did almost nothing. Now, when their financial interest is at stake, all of a sudden, hey,
they want to investigate.
Yeah, we're not talking about rape anymore. That woman got raped, that's her problem. You're suing us, that's our problem. Wait a minute, right? So all of a sudden, they're taking tremendous action. Look, when this lawsuit goes forward, are they going to question her about this stuff? Oh, they are, right? You know
yes.
it. But you can tell how gratuitous it is by how far they go. You're asking about her father's death that happened how many years ago for what reason, right? That's just, you know what that is? That's intimidation. And that's an active, conscious decision by the university and its lawyers. Let's intimidate this woman who was raped and who we did not help.
They want access to her private journals and diaries, like diaries that she writes in her book when she's in her room by herself. Why do they need access to that? You know, I think that that is a huge invasion of privacy. I could see why they would want access to that, right? Because it might have information that could help them in the case. But still, that's her private journal that's not meant to be public, and you can't violate her privacy like that. And you're absolutely right. It is intimidation. You know, all she wanted when she was going to that university is she wanted them to switch her to a different dorm because she had been raped in the dorm, right? So she's like, just move me to a different dorm. I can't stay here. They didn't even want to do that.
No, I just think about how outrageous that is. Remember, the facts are not in dispute. They were convicted.
Yes.
Okay? They did it. And they said, oh, well, you got raped in that dorm. Oh, well, what a hassle. What a hassle that we have to move your dorm room. Well, now you have the hassle of a lawsuit, so enjoy that, okay? It sickens me how little people care about other folks and how much they care about their pocketbook.
I know. Look, it's stories like this where I say it almost jokingly, but in a way I'm serious. You read stories like this and it makes you want to give up on humanity, right? And you start to believe that that kindness and that, you know, just camaraderie doesn't even exist anymore because people are out there for their own self-interest. They don't care about the well-being of others, and it just makes you sick to your stomach. It's how I felt when I read about the Troy Davis case. It's the way I feel when I read about this case.
Now, I hear you, man. Wrong forever on the throne, as Martin Luther King Jr. said. Actually, he was quoting someone else, but nonetheless. Wrong forever on the throne, justice on the scaffold, but the scaffold sways the future. I know, there's a lot of bad stories, but from time to time, we make a little bit of progress, and, you know, overall, in the course of history, you know, I always think of that story we did from the BBC about the average life expectancy and how it's skyrocketed over the last 200 years, right? I know that there are a lot of down periods, but we are overall making progress. We got to keep fighting and fighting behind those. And look, today was a great day, and I think a historic day as we repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So, but it's discouraging to hear these stories, but at least we bring them to light and hopefully make it a little bit better.
Absolutely. All right, the FBI released its annual uniform crime report, and they basically delved into the number of drug arrests in the country and how many people get arrested for what type of drug offenses, okay? Unsurprisingly, the majority of people who get arrested in this country for drug-related crimes are people who are in possession of marijuana. So look, we've done this similar story a million times, right? But you delve into the numbers.
It's weird. What do you think the percentage are for the number of stories we've done where the war on drugs is working? It's a success. What are we, 50-50? Or could it be 100 to 0?
100 to 0. It's unbelievable. No, but you look into the numbers and you start to picture all of these people in the prison system for something so stupid. And again, it makes you so angry. So I want to give you some of the numbers from the report. When it comes to drug arrests by police enforcement, with all drug-related crimes in mind, it turns out that about 1.6 million people were arrested this year. When it comes to marijuana-related arrests, about 854,000 people, or 52% of all drug arrests in the country, were marijuana-related.
And 88% of those are possession.
Yes, and only 12% are sale and manufacture. Which
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Just for possession.
We're wasting so much money. It's unbelievable.
Now, look, I get it. A lot of times they get a plea deal. So if they were doing a sale, they plead down to possession, right? So some percentage of that is misleading. Right? So I understand that. Even then, 88% for possession. What are we doing? I mean, look, we did this in Prohibition, and back then you would have been arrested for possession of alcohol. Now that's something that's celebrated, like in every single football game. Oh, the Coors Light commercial, the Miller. You're not a real man if you don't drink Miller Lite. That's awesome. That's back to being awesome. That was a constitutional amendment, okay? That's how serious they took it. Then they were like, oops, it turns out people like to get drunk and get a good buzz on. Many years from now, it seems like it's going to be 100 years from now or longer. People will say, what, we're arresting people because they wanted to get a buzz off of pot instead of a buzz off of alcohol?
But do you think we're headed in that direction? I mean, it seems like we are because you have states like California that have legalized medicinal marijuana, yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, so many people make money off criminalizing marijuana. And if those people continue fattening up the pockets of politicians, there will always be a prohibition on drugs.
No, I know. Wrong forever on the throne. But here's the thing, though, right? Look, I'm a big believer in campaign finance reform. Okay, you guys know that. If we can get knocked that out, we can win on all of these things. It's not like we've never won before, right? For example, against tobacco. Tobacco had unbelievable power in this country. But we have largely won that fight, where we have let people know they're lying, it does cause cancer, you should watch out for it. We have done great education, the number of smokers has gone down. We can win. Now in this case, the correctional facilities have a lot of power through a group called ALEC, we've discussed before, they influence legislation, but they're nowhere near as powerful as the tobacco companies used to be. So we can win, we just got to get to a fair system in our democracy where we're actually voting on ideas instead of who pays them more. Steve-O.
We're going to win as soon as Monsanto and other corporations figure out a way to monetize, and they will sell the drugs, in which case it'd be fine. It'd be fine.
Of course. Are you kidding me? No, but then I'm afraid of that. I don't even want it that way. Like if you said to me today, you can legalize it, but Monsanto is going to sell the marijuana, I'd be like, I think that might be a no deal.
Yeah.
Because I don't actually want people taking all sorts of drugs. Like marijuana's not a big deal, but like if you said any of those groups is gonna deal cocaine, I'd be like, no way, because they're much worse than the gangs in a sense. They're not as violent, obviously, right? But in terms of like being able to purvey it and spread it around more and being able to buy politicians, etc., I wouldn't want, believe me, and if we do legalize any of this stuff, it should not be in the hands of private corporations.
Okay, I love that you mentioned that because I think we're naive in thinking that if it becomes legalized, the government is going to administer these drugs. It's not going to work that way.
Well, it does in other countries, right?
It does.
But then
it
the
won't
other
work that
countries
way in
are
the
not
United
as
States.
bought as we are, right?
Exactly. I don't think it'll happen in the United States. Yesterday, we did a story about antidepressants, anxiety drugs, and painkillers being one of the leading causes of deaths in the United States. More and more people are dying from these prescription drugs. And it's because pharmaceutical companies keep pushing them and pushing them and pushing them, right? Doctors are prescribing them more and more. And I could definitely see a similar thing happening if we legalize drugs like cocaine or heroin. Why wouldn't private companies try to reap the benefits of that?
You know what will eventually happen, which will be awesome? They'll have the government say, we cannot negotiate marijuana prices. And they'll say, we cannot re-import marijuana from Mexico or Colombia. They'll be like, oh, those guys, they don't know how to do weed. Okay, we got to grow it here. Made in the USA weed, okay? Look, you think it won't happen? It'll definitely happen if we let private corporations sell it.
But that's exactly what's going to happen anyway, because in California, we have the medicinal marijuana, right? Those little dispensaries.
Right.
And, you know, initially, of course, they're individually owned and operated, but slowly they're becoming corporatized. So someone owns a chain of it, and that chain gets bought up by a bigger chain. I guarantee you, this is going to be taken over by the corporations, the whole marijuana business. I mean, it's obvious.
Hey, you got a yogurt chain. You thinking about these dispensary chains a little bit? Steve poses the audio guy, but he's actually an entrepreneur. Think about it.
/ resident stoner.
Yeah. Well,
marijuana could be a topping on the yogurts.
Well, now we're having a conversation.
Can you imagine? Then they'll eat more of your yogurt. Smart.
Now we're thinking. You see, we're capitalists here. Watch out. Okay. Don't let private corporations sell drugs. Okay, we got to take a quick break here. Come right back.